Hello there, Mad Mike here, and welcome back to the channel. And today we are going to talk about an announcement that was made yesterday by Netflix, which is the live-action cast of the One Piece show has been announced via Netflix yesterday on, I believe they announced it on Twitter. Um, and this is definitely a mixed bag of things, but I'm going to go over some stuff because, ironically, we actually have an exact nationality for each one of the main One Piece characters directly from the creator of the manga. So we're going to go over that, and we're going to compare and contrast some of the things with the casting choices. And I do want to say something up front is that I haven't, because we haven't seen any of these actors in costume. The only thing that we have to go on is their look from the manga and or the anime and their looks in real life and kind of how those compare and contrast in addition to the list of nationalities. So, I want to take a look at this, and we're gonna go into we're gonna start from the bottom up in this case. I want to save the big one for last, which is the actor who's playing Luffy. So we're gonna kind of work our way up from the bottom of the crew to the top, and this is probably one of the more interesting ones. And this is the casting choice for Usopp. Now the thing with Usopp is that he's the crew's sniper. He has this little slingshot, and he fires these like little explosive pellets and stuff like that. He's actually a really good. He's probably one of the better characters in terms of actually having a story arc in the show. For what I have seen of it, I haven't watched all of the show because I'm not that hardcore into killing myself. But I shouldn't say killing myself, but like the idea of like it has over like 1,000 episodes. I think it's something ridiculous. I know it has over 1,000 chapters actually. I don't know how many episodes technically, but there's a lot. Um, but the actor who's going to be playing Usopp is Jacob Gibson. Now, this is the weird one to me, but there's also some other weirdness here as well, which I'm going to kind of explain. So, Jacob Gibson is black. Usopp in the show really doesn't look like he has a black complexion. He looks tannish, kind of. But he mainly looks sort of on the Caucasian side. Again, it's kind of hard to tell a little bit with certain nationalities with the way anime looks sometimes. But he definitely does not look like a black man. Um, and that is saying there are black people that have shown up in the show, if I remember correctly. So, but the thing is that I can't remember his first name off the top of my head, but Oda, the writer of the manga, he has explained that Usopp is apparently African. Now, he didn't give a specific country in Africa when he stated this. He only said that Usopp was African. Now, based on his complexion, I would probably say he would be South African, not necessarily from, like, the Republic of Congo or something like that. Or possibly he could be maybe he from someplace like Egypt, maybe someplace a little bit closer to the Middle East, because there's a lot of varying skin tones for nationalities in the African continent. So it would be really really odd. It would be really really interesting to see actually what country he meant specifically, but he just said Africa. So I have a funny feeling that's where Netflix got their out for this, where they race swapped him basically. Kind of like how when they did the Cowboy Bebop thing and they changed Jet's nationality, the whole point of that was because the American voice actor, was black. But like I said, I think this thing is probably going to blow up on the launch pad anyway, so regardless of whether you race swap to Usopp, I don't think that's really going to matter. But that was kind of a weird one to me, even though Oda himself kind of confirms it. But like I said, that's the first one, and now we're gonna go up to Sanji. And Sanji, for those people that don't know, is the chef of the crew. He's the guy that cooks all the food, makes everything that everybody eats, and he kicks people in the face quite frequently. Um, Now he is being played by Taz Skylar, and that is a hell of a fucking screen name. Um, And basically, he's been in a few smaller things. He's kind of, I don't want to say an undiscovered actor, but he's definitely not on the front page of anything, at least not currently. Most of these actors aren't. Some of them are related to other Netflix projects, but in terms of like the way that he looks, I mean, I could see if you gave him the eyebrow and stuff like that and some longer hair, because most of the shots we have of him, he has a very short haircut. So I could see it working as Sanji. The only thing that I think is kind of stupid is I do hope that they keep his smoking habit in there and they don't do what they did in the English dub and replace his cigarette with a lollipop, because I think that's stupid. But I would be very curious to see how that winds up turning out. But at the same time, you also need to kind of encompass the way that Sanji fights. And that's going to be even more interesting to see if they can actually translate that, which is, Sanji, his main thing is kicking. He doesn't really use his hands all that much in combat other than to kind of brace his lower body and so that he can keep kicking people. That's really his main thing, and that's what he learned from the master chef who trained him, who was also a pirate at one point, Redlegs. But yeah, it's that one isn't terribly far off, but again, I would probably have to see him with longer hair and in a bit of a different costume. So that one again, I think that you got it relatively on, but I'm kind of curious how that's gonna turn out. Now the next one is probably one of the bigger names that's on the cast, and that is the actress who's going to be playing Nami, and that is Emily Rudd. Now, she is a Netflix alum. She's from a few other things. She was just in Fear Street, which came out last year. Or actually, no, not last year. I think earlier this year. And she also was on the show Dynasty. So she has a little bit of an acting chop. She's been in things that people have seen, especially recently. And it makes sense that Netflix would tap her again for something like this because she had just been in one of their other projects. Now, as far as a look goes, I don't think she's that bad. I think she's probably the closest to what we would probably have in the manga or in the anime. Again, she would probably have to dye her hair a bit of a brighter color, that orangey, gingery orange color. Minus the freckles. But yeah, I could definitely see her doing that. Now, as for the boob size, I'm sorry, but you're not gonna. Short of casting a porn star, I don't know if you're gonna necessarily get to that level. I'm just saying. But thank you, Oda, for drawing boobs. It's good. So now we're gonna move up to the number 2 on the Straw Hat Crew, which is Roronoa. Yeah, I always mispronounce his fucking name. Roronoa Zoro, and the thing with Zoro was like my favorite character on the show, out of all of the characters, mainly just because I like the whole samurai aesthetic. The fact that he uses 3 swords and the third one he holds in his fucking mouth was always really cool. And then he always had kind of the swordsman's honor, so it always kind of felt kind of interesting of the fact that he was a pirate, even though you knew how that was set up if you watched the show or you read the manga. So I get that, but the actor who's going to be portraying him is Makenyu, and I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly. Now, he was in Pacific Rim 2, which is probably his biggest Hollywood film that he's been in. And he was also in some of the Rurouni Kenshin films, the live-action ones. So he has a little bit of experience doing the manga stuff. And the other thing is, again, Oda has specified that the Zoro, no shock here, since he's a swordsman, he is Japanese. So again, that kind of makes sense when you're going from that standpoint. I believe Makenyu is Japanese. It makes a lot. It's pretty spot on, at least in terms of that. Sanji, by the way, is supposed to be French, and Nami is supposed to be Swedish, which I guess that kind of makes sense, even though I guess if she was Swedish, she would probably be more blonde. But he literally came up with most of that information off the top of his head, so I'm not going to nitpick it too much. But like I said, the only thing that kind of bothers me about this actor is I need to kind of see him when he's a bit more grizzled. Because the other thing is that Zoro in the show was always sort of, he didn't really look like a pretty boy. Let's put it that way. He was not a pretty boy. Sanji was a pretty boy. Which kind of makes sense with the guy that's cast as him. But he didn't have like a baby face. He wasn't like that. He was kind of this grizzled fighter. You know, he was one of the, especially when you got later on in the series, he was one of those guys that was kind of like, he looked like he had been kind of in the trenches for a bit. It was always something that was kind of like that. So the actor who's playing him doesn't really have that look, at least not from what I can see of him. He looks maybe like he might be a little bit too young or look a little too young to be playing Zoro, but again, I would have to wait and see what he looks like in the actual costume, because I would be more interested to see him when he's in costume and they have all the makeup and stuff applied to him, as opposed to how he looks just normally. But that's just kind of my thing with that. But I don't think it's necessarily bad casting in terms of, they didn't try to swap or do any kind of weird stuff with it. But I do think that you probably would have done a better job maybe if you had gotten somebody who had a little bit more of a chiseled jaw. The guy that played Scorpion, actually, in the most recent Mortal Kombat movie, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but if they had gotten him, that would have probably been a perfect casting, especially because he knows what to do with a sword, and that's very obvious at this point. Now we're going to move on to the big one. And this is the last one, and this is Monkey D. Luffy. And Monkey D. Luffy is being played by an actor named Inaki Godoy. And I have no idea... Iñaki Godoy. I have no idea if I pronounced that correctly. I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly. But he is a Mexican actor who is coming off not a whole lot. He's a relative unknown. And as far as, like, his face and all that stuff, I mean, he's got the hair for it, I will say that. Again, I would have to see him in the actual garb of Luffy in order to kind of understand what he's going to look like in the role. A lot of the pictures that we have of him are just kind of prototypical, like he looks normal. I need to see him with the eye scar. I need to see him with the hat on. I need to see him with the early garb for Luffy. So I can't really say anything too bad about that right now. The other thing is, Oda confirmed that Luffy's nationality would have been Brazilian. Even though the character is Mexican, even though the actor is Mexican, he still kind of matches that complexion for the most part. Even though Luffy in the show looks like he's a little bit lighter, but regardless of that, I don't really hate. See, here's the thing: I don't hate. Excuse me. I don't hate a majority of these castings. The Usopp one is just weird to me. But I don't really hate these castings as much as a lot of people. I'm assuming a lot of people do. But it's hard for me to kind of picture them in the roles, and that's more the difficult part that I'm dealing with right now. Is just the picturing them in the actual costumes and stuff like that, and doing things in that universe. But only time is going to tell. I'm sure we're going to get some visual stuff for it eventually, just like we did with Cowboy Bebop. But like I said, I don't exactly hate the casting, but I do not trust Netflix to do anything properly in terms of this adaptation, and I would be very curious to see some of the words that Oda has to say about this. But, that's just kind of my opinion. I want to know what you guys think. Are you excited for this show? Are you not excited for this show? Do you want to watch the One Piece show? Do you not? Do you think that the castings themselves are good, any of them? Or, list those in the comments below. As usual, I like to read them. Hit the bell for notifications. Hit the like button. Subscribe. And remember, I live my life free of compromise. Do you?